Most people try and make more money by charging more and more per hour by increasing their salary. I used to think the same way. I was billing between $100 and $250 per hour as a fractional CFO. High skill, good money, zero leverage. And then I realized something uncomfortable. No matter how high my hourly rate climbs, this model is still capped. It's got a hard ceiling that I can't break because there's only so many hours in a day that I can work. In this way, I'm never going to be able to build any real wealth doing this, and I'm going to burn myself into the ground. And so I ripped up my business model and rebuilt it from scratch. And now I sell effectively financial clarity products. It's the same outcome that I was giving my clients when I was billing by the hour, except now I've taken those skills and packaged them into recurring products. And I sell the outcome, not the hours. A couple of $1,000s per month for a given service, and the service is templated and can be delivered by my staff, meaning that the money that we generate is no longer directly tied to how many hours I'm putting in. That's the power of outcomes over hours, and it is a total game changer. So I'll give you guys a bit of backstory into how this all came about, how I ended up building this product. So I went out on my own at the start of this year as a fractional CFO, effectively just doing what I was doing as an employee, selling my time for money. But instead of selling it all to one employer, I was like, I will go out into the market, I will get clients, and I will sell my time to multiple businesses. And in this way, hopefully be able to lift the ceiling. Because when I just had a salary, it was literally a piece of paper that said, this is how much money you get paid per year. And I was like, well, this sucks. I can't do anything to increase that. And so the idea was simply break that ceiling. By working for multiple, I'll be able to charge them all, a little bit less, but altogether it will add up to be more. I was successful in getting my first couple of clients, and really I had a mix of sort of consulting, billing by the hour type work, as well as fixed fee projects, which I would scope based on a notional hourly rate of sort of between that $150 and $250 per hour mark. If I worked efficiently, I would get toward the higher end of the range, and if I was inefficient or encountered some difficulty in the work, then it would end up coming in at the lower end. That was the model. Revenue under this model grew very fast. It was very profitable. It was directly correlated to how much I was busting my ass. I think in month 3, I crossed 20,000, and then in the 4th month, I almost got to $30,000, which was insane because as an employee, I'd literally been capped at roughly $8,000 per month. So to be only at, 1 quarter into the model and to have basically 3-4x what I'd ever made in my life, it was insane at first, but the thrill was short-lived. You see, it sounds impressive until you realize this. Every extra dollar that I was making required directly extra time. And so the month, for example, that I cleared almost $30,000, I worked 300 hours that month. And really, to wrap it all up, the biggest lesson that I learned was this. If your income is tied directly to your effort, you don't actually have a business. You have what I would refer to as a golden cage. What you've got is a prettier, better, more free version of a job. It's just a job with a better costume on. You have 5 bosses instead of 1, but effectively it's the same type of scenario. The thing that I hated about it the absolute most was this. I could have a huge month, make $25,000, and then the following month my revenue would go to zero. Literally, it would just go nothing. If I wanted to take a holiday and leave my laptop at home and I was billing by the hour, I was going to make $0. And so how is that sustainable? The entire thing is entirely dependent on my execution. What if I get sick? What if anything happens? What if I just feel like I'm burnt out and need to take a month off? It was like that. It was so fragile and really just entirely dependent on me. And so in that way, it was truly just a treadmill. It was a cage. And I realized pretty early on, I was only about 5 months into it when I realized this wasn't going to scale. I had to do something about it. I had to stop selling more engagements and basically, revisit the entire model and rebuild it from scratch. And when I sat down to think about it, I sort of realized there was one core insight. Every client that I worked with wasn't actually buying my time. They were buying clarity. They were buying outcomes. They were buying certain things that I delivered for them. They didn't care about my time directly. No one gives a shit if it takes 2 hours or if it takes 20. If the outcome is valuable, the outcome is what gets paid for. And so once I realized this, I spent the entire third quarter of this year really rebuilding the model from scratch. I stopped selling it. I just ground everything down to a halt, and I finished up my existing engagements that I'd sold earlier in the year. And then I really locked into, okay, what are the main outcomes that I deliver for my clients? What do they actually want? What are they paying for? And I thought, okay, these are if we package them into categories, these are the different things. How can I create a way of being able to deliver this for multiple clients at the same time with minimal incremental or marginal effort each time we add a new client? And really, I landed on creating templates where when we would onboard a client, you would take a template that I've built, you would then customize it to be adapted to that client's business model, and then you would simply be running a monthly ongoing cadence of refreshing it with new data. And in that way, the client is going to get the combination of the template, which is effectively me taking the skill out of my brain that I was constantly customizing and making new for every new client, taking that and putting that into a repeatable model. And then once that was built and customized, really, you're basically just running a standard operating procedure month after month, and the client on their end is getting the full benefit of if I had been working, several hours per month for them, but it's now a massively streamlined process with a clear operating procedure that can be delegated. And this is a total game changer. Effectively, the process that you've got to follow is you've got to extract the repeatable outcome. You've got to work out what is that outcome first, or what are the outcomes. There probably is several. And then you extract that and put it into a template, whether that's a document, an Excel spreadsheet. In my case, what I actually built for the most part is Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations that sort of link, you do the initial data work in Excel, and then it spits out a bunch of outputs, and you put that into PowerPoint, and then that ships off in a PDF, and that's what the client actually gets. For me, this was really about financial forward visibility, cash flow control, executive reporting, and basically just clear data which allowed clients to maintain a monthly decision rhythm and have trust in their numbers. And this is what they kept paying for regardless of the hours that I was putting in. And so in the third quarter, I sat down and built these templates, and really some of them took, more than 100 hours of effort to develop. And at this point, I hadn't sold any of them yet. I did have a very good idea of what the market wanted because I'd been working as a consultant. And so I knew intimately what the problems were that I was solving, and had a good deal of confidence that these would be useful, or at the very least, I'd be able to continue using them in my business. But I basically focused on building these things for literally several weeks. I would be working on just one template, and it was effectively a front-loaded investment. Then I sold the first one, and it rolled onto a monthly retainer, and I realized after the second month delivering it that the template, all that front-loaded effort, it's like now the template does 80% of the work before I or somebody else even have to touch it. And what's more is that every single month when you run the cycle with a client, the template gets more refined. It becomes a more advanced version. And so while I'm running most of this myself at the moment, I've now realized that I'm basically in possession of a delegable process which I can hire and train an analyst to run for me. And that's really the setup for growth, scale, and leverage. And I think that this is fundamentally the difference between a job and a business. In a job, you produce the output. Going out under your own personal brand, but as a consultant, you've just created yourself a job of one, but it's still a job. It still has the same ingredients that a job has. You are the bottleneck. In a business, on the other hand, a system produces the output, not you. And if you disappear or you're sick, it still produces. That's the fundamental difference. If we take this template, the very first one that I sold, monthly delivery of this product now takes under 2 hours per client on average. And those 2 hours don't necessarily have to be my 2 hours. An analyst can run the system, update the model, refresh the data, and then I just simply oversight their work. At a $2,000 per month price point, selling the outcome rather than hours, if this is delegated to an analyst, I might have to pay $100 for that analyst's 2 hours of work. And that leaves a disgusting margin on this product. When I was billing $150 an hour, I had to work about 13 hours to make $2,000. Now the system can earn $2,000 done by somebody else where I might only spend 10 minutes reviewing it. And that really is the moment that I understood the difference between income and leverage. And once it clicked, I became obsessed with it. And going back to where we started, most people think that the way forward is to just charge more to earn a higher salary. The real way out is changing the model entirely, architecting leverage into the model. Outcomes beat hours, systems definitely beat labor, templates that are repeatable beat custom work, recurring beats one-off projects, and delegation beats personal effort. And you can't scale just by working harder. You scale by removing yourself entirely from the production line. Like, I didn't get any smarter, there was no magical hack here. I simply stopped selling my own time, and instead I started selling results. If you have a skill that you can deliver for $200 an hour, you can almost always turn that into a $2,000 a month product or service for a client. And once you learn to build systems or delegate delivery, that's when income becomes recurring and your time becomes yours again. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. I drop one like this every 48 hours, and I hope to see you in the next one.